WandaVision's commercials could have a much deeper meaning than you think. While we're all busy debating whether Wanda Maximoff, Director Hayward, or Mephisto is the true villain of WandaVision, another fan theory's been taking place behind the scenes, little by little taking shape with each new episode. Besides, we already know the true villain of WandaVision, by the way, is that Please Stand By screen. This theory, though, is all about those weird, wonderful commercials that come following the first act break of each episode. There have been all sorts of wild theories about what the commercials really mean, including whether or not the two actors that recur in the commercials are meant to be Pietro and Wanda's parents, if the hands of the clock in the Strucker watch commercial have some sort of hidden message in semaphore, and so much more. And most of us generally agree they are actually manifestations of Wanda's repressed trauma about her past, which we have covered at length in our episode breakdowns, which if you haven't seen yet, guess what? You still have time to catch up. But this theory in particular, which many of you have mentioned in the comments, suggests a much deeper relevance to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Specifically, those magical MacGuffins that Thanos loves to collect, the Infinity Stones. Now, in order to talk about this theory, we do have to spoil moments from each episode of WandaVision thus far, so if you're way behind or you accidentally clicked this video somehow, well, leave now before it's too late. Okay, let's get into it, shall we? According to this fan theory, in addition to referencing events from Wanda's life, all of WandaVision's commercials correspond to specific Infinity Stones as well, which sounds crazy, right? Well, let's look at the evidence. In episode 1, filmed before a live studio audience, we get a commercial for the Stark Industries Toastmate 2000. It's a high-tech toaster straight out of the 1950s. But rather than an emblem of the Stark Industries bomb that killed Wanda's parents in Sokovia, some fans actually saw a face in the toaster, and that oval logo on the forehead was standing in for the Mind Stone. And why the Mind Stone? Well, because they think it's the Vision's face. In Tom King and Gabriel Hernandez Walt's The Vision number 7, Wanda calls Vision a toaster. In the MCU, Tony Stark was largely responsible for creating the Vision, and the Vision is powered by the Mind Stone, which, as we saw during Wanda's grisly revelation in episode 4, is still very much missing from his forehead, along with a lot of his forehead. Plus, in 2006, John Byrne, who wrote the iconic Vision Quest story arc from West Coast Avengers on which WandaVision is partly based, had this to say on his website. The question becomes, I suppose, one of value, knowing that the Vision's complete personality, memory, intelligence was downloaded into a computer in Titan. Was it Titan? Memory blurs. Allowed me to scrape his brain in my Vision Quest story, since everything could be restored with a literal flip of the switch. Should something that can be so easily copied and retrieved be treated as having the same intrinsic value as a human being? Should any of the human Avengers, for instance, ever risk their lives on behalf of the Vision? My vote would be no, as some of you have probably already guessed, but I would say that even if it were not possible to restore or save the Vision in any other way, he is a toaster. Alright, brutal quote, John Byrne. So the toaster canon is well established, but the Mind Stone also intrinsically links Wanda and Vision on a far deeper level. Because when Wanda and her brother Pietro were prisoners of Hydra, they experimented on them with the Mind Stone to give them their superhuman abilities, or maybe draw out whatever latent abilities were dormant within them. Now, some might even call those mutant abilities, but that's a story for another video. Next up in episode 2, we have an ad for the Strucker brand watch, which could be a stand-in for the Time Stone, in addition to referencing both Hydra and Baron von Strucker, the goon who conducted all of those experiments on Wanda Maximoff and Pietro Maximoff way back when. The tagline, "He'll make time for you," seems fitting if this is actually meant to be the Time Stone, because Doctor Strange's go-to accessory housed in the Eye of Agamotto lets him do exactly that. Considering we know WandaVision will also directly tie into the events of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, it feels fitting the Sorcerer Supreme will be awfully important moving forward, so why not mention him here as well? Next, we come to episode 3, which gives us a commercial for Hydra Soak, a riff on Calgon's iconic Take Me Away bubble bath commercial. Now, Hydra Soak comes in a bright blue box, which bears a striking visual similarity to the Tesseract, the MCU stand-in for the Cosmic Cube, which also conveniently contained the Space Stone. Its messaging about escaping to a world all your own is obviously a reference to Wanda creating the Hex, but it lines up with the Space Stone's ability to transport people across vast distances as well. Then, in episode 5, we get a commercial for Lagos brand paper towels, which are perfect for mopping up messes you didn't mean to make, kind of like the one that Wanda actually did make in Lagos, Nigeria in Captain America Civil War, which in turn led to that whole Sokovia Accords thing and, tore the Avengers apart. Given the nature of Wanda's hex magic, which is bright red in color, as well as the red logo of Lego's paper towels, or Lagos as they call them, which mops up red liquid, fans are equating it to the ether, the liquefied version of the reality stone that we first saw in Thor the Dark World. And considering how Wanda is able to reshape the fabric of reality with her magic, many fans are wondering if she has a connection to that Infinity Stone as well. Only time will tell. Last but not least, we have the most upsetting commercial to date, which premiered in episode 6, All New Halloween Spooktacular. It's for Yo Magic brand yogurt, a claymation parody of 90s commercials, which, as some of you in the comments very helpfully pointed out, could be a parody of Australia's Yogo commercials, which were just as claymated and just as twisted. And while we have our own theories about the true significance of this deeply disturbing commercial in our episode 6 breakdown, according to this theory, it's most likely a representation of the Soul Stone. The commercial features a child struggling to open a carton of Yo Magic brand yogurt, which apparently sustained that weirdo shark so he can hang Finn, or whatever that means. Unfortunately, the kid can't open the yogurt carton and dies alone on the island, having starved to death, and some fans drew parallels between this kid in a red t-shirt and the Red Skull who sought the power of the Soul Stone, but was doomed to never be able to access it, serving instead as a tour guide of local cliff faces on Vormir. Should have called this Snack Widow if you ask me. It's also fitting because the Soul Stone requires sacrifice in order to access its true power. One person alone cannot wield the Soul Stone. Someone they love must perish to pay the cost of its terrible power. And in Wanda's case, to access a power like that, she's going to have to finally let go of the Vision instead of using him in the darkest version of Weekend at Bernie's Humanly Possible. And if we follow this to its logical conclusion, that leaves the Power Stone, which will likely come in next week's episode in the form of some sort of commercial for a power tool or a pickup truck or something like a sports drink. Anyway, it's going to happen during episode 7, which will likely parody some of the late 2000s, early 2010s sitcoms like The Office and Modern Family. But does this theory actually hold water? Well, for my money, no, not really. It's a fun coincidence, it's a fun way to ascribe additional canonical relevance to these commercials, but as Agnes reminds us inside of the Hex, Wanda Maximoff is the star of the show.
Look, it's the star of the show!
And the director and the editor, you get it. All of these commercials do have a deeper significance, but it's about Wanda Maximoff, her life, and the trauma and grief that she is clearly suppressing and ignoring in favor of the perfect little world that she's built for herself in Westview. That said, as someone who constantly reads way too much into basically everything in WandaVision, I really appreciate everyone out there who brought this to our attention and continue to spin up some of the wildest theories around, because that's exactly what makes this show so much fun to watch and talk about, all the weird theories. And we will have plenty to talk about later this week when WandaVision Episode 7 finally comes to Disney Plus this Friday. In the meantime, though, tell us, what do you think of this theory? Do you think the commercials actually represent the Infinity Stones? And what do you think we'll get a commercial for in Episode 7?
A booger!
Yes.
Let's discuss in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.